Hello and welcome to Whittle. I'm Peter Whittle. Now, my guest this week, someone who'll be very well known to you, because I know that a lot of people who follow the New Culture Forum also follow him. He was last on the show a good 3 or 4 years ago. Mahyar Tousi, founder and host of Tousi TV. Hello there, Mahyar. Hi.
Hello, Peter. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
Not bad, not bad. Yeah, it's been a while since I...
Yes, it has been a while. I remember that the last time that we actually spoke, we were talking about the possibility of you standing for the mayoralty of London. Do you remember that?
Yeah, good days, yeah.
Yeah. Far more seriously, though, you've been having a fair amount of turmoil recently, haven't you? I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what's been happening.
Yes, actually, yeah, I mean, the decision not to stand for London Mayor was to avoid trouble, especially for myself and my family. But ironically, everything has happened since by simply doing my job, which is to report the news and give my opinion to it. It's created some problems for me personally and my family. So over the last few years, especially over the last year, since October the 7th, because obviously I've had to report on what's going on in the Middle East as well as in the UK, death threats escalated. Against myself and more recently about my against my family. But over the last few years, generally speaking, it was interesting because the channel that I have, Tousi TV, was at first was about Brexit. It was simply about reporting Brexit news and everything else that was going on. And even back then, there were a number of what I call champagne socialists and liberal lefties who used to send weird messages online. But I ignored it. These people get angry. But things got escalated as the news changed, basically. So unfortunately, I've had over the last couple of years a kidnapping attempt outside my house, and these were people who were the authorities said that are linked to the Islamic Republic of Iran's embassy. That was stopped. There were a couple of situations where people tried to enter my flat in central London, so I've had to now move over the last week or so to somewhere else that I can't say anymore. That's a problem. And my family were threatened as well. And the sad reality is that I get accused of being everything at the same time. I'm funded by Mossad, MI6, CIA, KGB. Apparently KGB is back. CCP, all the groups. And so by simply reporting news, well, we are where we are in this business, I guess.
Now, where would the death threats be coming from, do you think, at the moment?
So, in fact, it's interesting timing that we are doing this interview now, because today or tomorrow I'll be giving more information as well on my channel, but I can give you guys the preview. A number of the death threats seem to be more rogue individuals, but because of my background, obviously, I can tell sometimes when they are Iranian linked. But there was a situation where I do have, evidence in terms of what I was told by a private investigator that members of, let's just say, an organization, 5 pillars, trying to find, it's an Islamic group in the UK, they were trying to find my home address. They didn't say what they wanted to do, so I can't accuse them of doing anything specific, but they were very keen on trying to find my home address. So it's been going on for a while now,
But you've managed to keep pretty much broadcasting, haven't you, through this?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to, because one thing I've learned is most of the time, apart from genuine potential death threats or things like this, the tactics being used by those who don't agree with our conservative views or things that we believe in is they do say things, or they do try to make you scared so that you stop. And so you go away, basically. And some of the comments that people like us would get on social media is like, "Oh, just go away." So it's the people who obviously, especially in the West, have been raised in a sense, in a way, by the new education system and society that says, if you don't like something, if you don't agree with something, just tell it to go away, shut it down, cancel it. So, but yeah, if I were to stop, they will be winning. So, and also I have to continue my job. So yeah.
Tell me if my perception is wrong here, but from what I can see is that when we first spoke, and obviously we bump into each other since then, you were pretty much a commentator you now seem to have taken a more journalistic route. I mean, actually going out and reporting. So you've become, you reported on, for example, the various, I don't like to say demonstrations, but for example, with the celebration in Trafalgar Square recently, and but also you've been out and about during the Palestinian, haven't you, the demonstrations there? And I imagine, therefore, if you get a profile for doing that, that's where people are going to start kind of like, basically posting nasty things, aren't they? Or worse than that, as you've had.
Yes. No, I mean the channel that I have, obviously the main part of it is on YouTube, and we have our own independent platform as well.
Yeah.
But it started actually with I didn't plan any of this. When I started, it was mostly like a personal diary. I was just making videos about Brexit. It was just for my own sake. Back in the day when Theresa May was making a mess, and then but people then found out they could get more updates from about Brexit on that, so and people's opinions. So it was a basically Brexit channel. Then lockdown happened and everything else, and then we met as well, you and I. Those days were essentially it was political commentary and reacting to existing news.
Yeah.
And for a while, that was a channel. I was just broadcasting my own comments and my own opinion. Over the last year or so, it was actually coincidentally just before October the 7th. Other things were happening as well. I can't remember what it was, a couple of months before, where inevitably I started just reporting it and doing more live streams rather than just shorter videos, just reacting to stuff. And then stuff was happening around the world. And at the end of the day, I realized, oh, the channel is now turned into a news channel, and also a more geopolitical news rather than just British news. So, like
Yes.
yesterday, over the last couple of days, we've been reporting live updates about what's going on between North Korea and South Korea. So we now actually, back in the day, until a year and a half ago, the YouTube channel demographic was about probably 90%, 95% UK based. Now it's about 50% UK based, and the rest of it is around the world. So yeah, I mean, it's basically turned into more of a daily news channel, and that's why we then created our own independent platform as well, Tousi TV Plus. Then we're creating an app as well for more kind of educational, more informative content. So we do have documentaries now, and more kind of there's a couple of things we've done recently on it, which is the rise of globalism, the origins of anti-Semitism. So these are the sort of content we're trying to do to kind of counter the actual left-wing liberal culture that is basically spreading around.
Yeah, you've actually got, it's getting on for 750,000 subscribers on YouTube. But as you say, you have this platform too. Are you pretty much now, therefore, are you sort of, as it were, divorced from what we laughingly used to call the mainstream? I mean, in the sense that, do you, you've got a particular audience now, would you say? I mean, in the sense that, for example, GB News or Talk TV or all of these people, you have been on those, haven't you? But it's not really your main thing, is it, anymore?
No, actually, I was approached by GB News before it was actually launched, before it even had the name. One of the few people that were approached included me, and I was supposed to be part of it. It didn't actually happen then, before the launch, but then they approached me again a year later to give me a show. And at that point, actually, I was excited before, but at that point, because of everything with my channel, I said no to GB News, even though they're still friends of mine. It would have been a bad career decision for myself, firstly pay cut, but also in terms of reach as well. But it is, yeah, it's different. In fact, I've only just been on GB in terms of having time to even go on GB on Patrick Christie's show a few days ago, after months. I don't actually have the time because they wanted me to do obviously more contributing and all that stuff. But it would kind of, at this point, it goes against my branding. If I'm invited as a political commentator, but when I'm reporting in news at the same time.
Yes.
So it's quite tricky. But to be fair, with all the respect to friends at the GB News, and there's a gap in the market for a GB News as well. But the platform they are on, which analog, old school platform of TV, is failing. And we get more views than all of them.
I want to ask something that's really, well, you will know this, something that's really domestic news, right? Something that is really exercising people's minds in these kind of waters in which we swim, if you like. And that is kind of where is the direction of travel when it comes to opposing what's happening to our country? Do you know? I mean, you've got political parties, of course. You've got Reform. You've got the Tories going through this leadership thing at the moment. Then you've got Tommy Robinson's movement. I mean, do you sense, like I do, at the moment, there's this kind of fork in the road a bit? I mean, and if you do, I mean, where do you see it going? Where do you see it going? Where is the most effective opposition going to come from?
So this is it's weird to say because the way it is now, and a lot of people were excited saying, "Oh, Reform UK came up, brilliant. The Tories are dead." Oh, but then a lot of the Reform UK supporters and voters are slowly starting to realize they're not actually radical, and they're not supposed to be radical. The point of Reform UK and Nigel was supposed to be to replace the Tories as a centre-right party. And so those who got excited because apparently like Reform UK is like AFD in Germany, that's not the case. So it creates a new challenge for Reform or anybody that wants to basically challenge the Tories, because that means you're replacing the Tories by being better Tories rather than a different type of party. So, for example, when Nigel Farage recently rejected the idea of mass deportations because it's politically incorrect and impossible, some of his supporters were like, "Whoa, we voted for you because we thought you were going to radical." So, on that issue, this might actually end up helping the Tories if they get their act together. I know a lot of people can't believe it. They're like, "What? The Tories just died. It's impossible for them to come back." Yes, you say that, but considering the alternative to the current Conservative Party is not some sort of radical nationalist conservative movement, if Reform UK failed to replace the Tories as a centre-right party, as just a mainstream conservative platform, then Tories they're still technically the main party. And Tommy Robinson's movement, which is not really just about Tommy Robinson anymore, and he himself obviously wants to step back. It's and I've been helping the team as well. It's called the United Kingdom. We've got people from different sides. We've got libertarians, we've got conservatives, nationalists, and the whole point of that was it was to unite the people on the outside. And then this weird conversation started happening about personality, egos, and political differences. So everyone's saying, well, if this movement is going well with Tommy, then they should be part of Reform. And then obviously both sides kicked off because Nigel Farage never liked street protests as a concept. And he still sees Tommy the way Tommy was presented by the media over the last 10, 15 years. But I know him personally, obviously, Tommy, has improved massively. He admits back in the day he chose the wrong tactics politically, but he's a good guy. He's not radical in that sense. I guess compared to British conservatives, he's radical, but he's not racist, for example, despite what the media says. So it's politically toxic for even Nigel Farage, if he wants to be more mainstream, to combine with anybody associated with Tommy. So it's tricky for the right, for the political right in the UK. It's very difficult right now. So the only option I see, and I'm not trying to be defeatist, those who are watching this saying, come on, we need radicalism. I'm saying the only scenario I see is Reform UK could do well in Parliament, but if somehow the Tories somehow pick a leader that could fix the party relatively, they could come back, the Tories. Not in a country who will love them, but temporarily. Looking at the polls, by simply not doing anything, the Tories are actually doing well by keeping their mouth shut. But I personally think that there is a need for either a new Conservative Party or like basically anyone who's part of the Tory parliamentary party needs to get out, to start from scratch, or just a new party. Because I don't think it's going to fix anything. It's a plaster. The Tories could come back, even with the help of Reform. They might even just about win the election, hypothetically. Does that actually fix the problems? Because we had 14 years of the same mentality. A lot of the issues that we talk about, the woke culture and everything else, the education system, the trans lobby, were happening under this umbrella of conservatism, centre right. So I don't know.
I don't think they can even be. I mean, they can't keep a straight face and call themselves conservative. I mean, not after not just the past 14 years, but the people who populate the party. I mean, you were in the Tory party, weren't you? I mean, well, so was I, but a long time ago. But you actually were campaigning for them, I think, at one point. I mean, obviously, they're now with this leadership thing going on. Do you have any preference at all for who it should be?
Well, no, but I mean, theoretically, if you put a gun to my head, based on what he says, generic, but when you look at his track
Yeah,
record and what he was
yeah,
before, yeah, he was when I was part of the Tory party, he was known as a Cameroon,
yes,
and I don't know what happened to him, but we know obviously politicians change their mind, and you know suddenly they never had a past apparently, but on paper more generic, mostly because even though like some of the things that Kemi Badenoch would say, oh well, that's nice. She believes women are women, but that's not really enough because Kemi Badenoch
no, no,
is part of the machine, part of the Michael Gove's cabal, and she's a globalist, and you know she's against mass deportations and everything else. She bragged about promoting migration in Parliament. Neither of them, but I don't know. Perhaps actually the Tories need the worst option out of the two to completely go into coma to someone else to
yes,
revive them
yes,
because
yeah,
I don't think a short-term plaster will help. Even
no,
hypothetically, if Robert Jenrick convinces people that oh no no I now I'm a believer now. I believe in conservatism. Even if he
yeah,
manages that, I don't think it's the right solution. The Tories need to actually wake up, and that means every single person as part of the central office, CCHQ, need to get kicked out.
yeah,
Everything needs to
yeah,
change.
yeah,
Otherwise, nothing will change. Since, as you were saying about before 14 years ago, so in 2005, the party was taken over by the Lib Dems, basically, the likes of David Cameron, George Osborne. In the name of modernizing, they turned the party into a liberal party, and that was with the help of again people like Michael Gove at the time. It doesn't really help. You know, the problem has not been dealt with, so we are where we are.
I think the thing is, it could well be that if Jenrick, well, it looks like unlikely that he will, but if he were to become leader, it could be kind of rather sort of like an embarrassment for reform in some ways, because he's actually, as you say, he's actually kind of tougher, at least on paper. At least on paper. One thing we should learn from the Tories is their ability to not keep their word. Where does that leave, for example? Is it right to say, actually, Mo, that I know you're reporting on it, but is it right to say that you've pretty much pinned your colours to the mast with Tommy? Is it right to say that, or?
Not necessarily, no, because in a sense that I'm still basically having my journalistic hat around reporter hat, but with the movement, with the United Kingdom movement, at first I just went to make a speech, and then following the first time, then we all got together, including Lawrence Fox and many others, Calvin Robinson, to then be part of a wider team to also help Tommy with his branding and everything else. And that really helped. So everything we've done over the last couple of rallies, we were more like a right-wing Glastonbury. It was
Yeah.
peaceful music and it was fun, actually diverse. So that's kind of helped. But I'm still basic. The reason I'm not part of anything long term, I mean, I'm still part of the United Kingdom movement. I help and everything else, is because I'm a contrarian and I don't do well with teams. I'm not a team player. So one of the
All
reasons
right.
I couldn't stay in party politics was the same problem as well.
Yeah.
I have to do my own thing in my own time. So I
Yeah.
still help them anyway. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I got told off, let's just say, by Nigel and people close to Nigel Farage for simply even attending the first rally to speak,
Yes.
um, saying basically I'm now cancelled by reform. So I'm like, well, I can't even hang out with them on a friendly level, which is really weird. But
Yeah. I think they're. Don't you think they're missing a trick, really, in a way? I mean, by not engaging, with people who are in many cases their natural supporters, it seems.
it kind of defeated them. It's really part of the British culture, and so
Yeah.
it's funny because Nigel Farage is friends with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump would have taken a different approach, and Nigel seems to like Trump's approach in America, but he doesn't want to replicate. You don't have to replicate Trumpism in the UK in that sense, but you can still learn from it. So, for example, Marine Le Pen, radical and everything else, but she still dissociated herself with some of the people part of AFD because they were crazy.
Yeah.
But but she doesn't care if the rest of the French media call her crazy because she says no, and people are supporting me. So you're right. If considering that, especially since I've been more kind of close and friendly with Tommy, I realized that both of us were getting attacked, me and Tommy, by actual ethno-nationalists, which we don't really have many of them in the UK, but there's like 7 of them. Actual ethno-nationalists. They're weird creatures, by the way. Calling Tommy and myself like, Zionists and all that,
Yeah.
and we're globalists there because they want to deport anybody who's mixed race. So and
Yes.
but if people like Nigel were to embrace this side,
Yeah.
but the reason they can't is because it's defeatism. They're like, oh no, but these guys have already been cancelled by BBC, so it's tricky. But if you embrace them and you can actually point out at the real baddies, saying, no, no, look at the actual Nazis, then the real far right don't like Tommy, so we're gonna actually get together. But nobody takes risks anymore.
Yes.
I,
Yes.
I would like to think if Maggie was around and she was somehow
Oh.
reforming case, she would have been like, I don't care, you come, you come.
Yes. I think you're talking about a different breed entirely, though. I mean, with those politicians, this, when I was in my 20s then, I mean, you can just tell, surely, even from looking at old archive. I mean, these people were at least serious people. We don't have many serious people around now. I think I know the answer to this one, but even so, I mean, and you might say, well, isn't it obvious? But what would you say? What would you say is the biggest issue when you're talking about the survival of the country? What are the biggest issues for you? I mean, I would say, to me, it's obvious that is immigration and radical Islam. I mean, would you go along with that, or do you think it's something else?
Yeah, there are things that we could list that say these are the things that they're doing something. So, for example, Islamism and even radical globalization, which kind of undermines sovereignty. But we also have to list other things that we are now lacking and losing. So, what we call basic Christian cultural values,
Yeah.
when they go away, so you don't have to be practicing religions, but we completely lost it even in our classrooms. I remember when I was a kid, because I was born in Iran, and yes, Iran obviously has been taken over by the Islamic side. But even in terms of this example, I'm going to say from a classroom, schools in Iran is not really about religion. It's about just the culture. A teacher walks in, even primary school, kids will stand up. It's just basic stuff. It's like
Yeah.
small thing that we are losing. When you lose that, when you lose certain things, including the cultural Christian values and everything else that's been happening, and the spirits of free market capitalism and actual individual liberty, then other things will replace it or affect it. So there's a vacuum. So not just Islamism, not just the political ideology of like radical Islamism, but even cultural side of Islam. Obviously, they're going to say, well, that church is empty. Well, can we take it
Yeah.
over and turn it
Yeah.
into a mosque?
Yeah.
Well, can you blame them? When
Yes.
there's a gap in the market, someone
Yeah.
else is going to fill it. So
Yes.
why is the
Exactly.
church empty? Where is everybody? So
Yeah.
it's those things that we are losing out. And nobody's defending the Western values or British values. I mean, there are people doing it, yourself, Douglas Murray, and others, but I'm talking about the political leadership. I'm talking about the class of people we are creating in the House of Commons, civil service, the type of recruitment we are doing for
Yeah.
civil service. I mean, when you think about even yourself, as you said, back in the 80s when Thatcher was prime minister, and yeah, the civil service are always civil service, but the
Yeah.
class of people, the type of quality of people who were there comparing to now, it's those things when we kind of lost control. And Stephen Barrett, the barrister, who goes on GB News and obviously comes on my channel as well, said something interesting a while ago. The problem with the political establishment and the whole system, especially Parliament, since Brexit, was because for decades we've been so dependent as a system on the European Union, legally, constitutionally, everything else, that people, that civil servants and MPs don't know how to run the country. So
Yeah.
at best, they're all over the place. So Boris Johnson's government, they didn't know what to do. They're like, oh, we have to do things now. We have to actually write our own laws. We can't get advice from the bureaucrats. We don't have to wait for the European judges all the time. We've been too dependent. And so you can't just say, now you're independent, go do whatever you want to do. We've been out of practice, like telling the Iraqis after Saddam, here's a democracy. I don't know what to do with
Yeah.
it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of rebuilding, obviously your parents came to Britain from Iran, didn't they? Effectively, like a form of dissident, really, political dissident, really. And you grew up in Lewisham, didn't you? In southeast London, very near where I grew up at Shooters Hill. But you see, when you look at Iran, do you have a sense? I mean, obviously you're British, and you have a very strong pride and allegiance to Britain. But do you sort of ever think to yourself, I would like to? What do you think of the future, if you like, of your family's homeland? Would you like to be involved in the rebuilding of it if ever that happens? I mean, this is an interesting time, is it not, for Iran actually?
Yeah. So you were right relatively about my family and background. So my family were not necessarily political, but when you're in countries like Iran or China or Russia, you are automatically political. You have to know what's going on,
Yes.
as opposed to here you can afford to just bury your heads in the sand, not even know who the prime minister is, and that's one of the problems. But my mother was just coming from shopping, coming home, and she got into trouble. The morality police tried to arrest her. So she ran into the British embassy. She didn't know it was a British embassy accidentally, and then they helped her for once. And so, but my dad got stuck in Iran, and now he's under house arrest and everything else. And so I haven't seen him in years. But my mother is here to answer that question. I mean, firstly, this is the end. This is the beginning of the end for the regime.
Yeah.
It might take 6 months, a year, 2 years. There's no way they can come back. But myself, but not only, it goes back to what I said earlier about Tommy reform and the Tories. I'm not a team player. I can't be part of anything because don't trust me on that to help anything to rebuild. But actually, this is controversial, especially if anybody is watching with Persian background. I can't relate to that culture anymore, and even the nicer end. And the Persian culture is great, but apart from going to see my dad, I mean, I can't now, but if Iran is free, I can go and see my dad for a couple of days. I can't. I'm way too British. I'm a sellout, basically. I can't really relate to the Iranian cultures.
Right. Well, I mean, you were a very small child, were you? Not when you were.
Not that young. I was like 13, 14. So
Oh, right. Okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
I still remember. But
Yeah. But
I've been out.
the one thing. I mean, I'm talking about changes that are happening all around us. You were in Lewisham. You grew up, what, for most of the time in Lewisham. Presumably went to school nearby, did you?
Yeah, it
Or
was there. Lee Green. Yeah, Lee.
Lee
Yeah.
Green? Oh, okay. Fact is, I mean, I moved out of London about 3 years ago, and I made a program for the channel about it, and it struck obviously a big chord because it did extremely well. When you look around at London now, I mean, the changes seemingly happen on a kind of almost monthly basis. I mean, and I sort of, people say, oh, you shouldn't leave, whatever, but fact is, it's such a cliche, but I sort of feel, well, I didn't leave, London left me. I mean, I know that's such a cliche, but that's the best way I can think of putting it. Do you feel that about London, your capital? Do you feel that or not?
It's lost, and not only lost. It's the change is weird because 25 years ago, when I was a kid, when we moved to Lee Green in Lewisham with my mother, it was already, when it comes to skin color, it was diverse. Actually, it wasn't diverse because the majority were black British. Then you had a tiny, you had a few white people, white English, and then like, one or two maybe South Asian, right? But white and black British, everybody was seeing them as British. They were all English. But now, on the one hand, parts of, for example, Lee Green or Blackheath, the gentrified and all that, so it seems more white, but and also diverse in a different way. So you got very different type of cultures. It's not just about ethnicities. So now you can actually feel that it's not united anymore.
Yes, yes, yeah.
You can feel that, oh, that there's a vibe I'm getting, that corner of the streets, that group, that they seem foreign, for example, in terms of culture, in terms of mentality. Whereas back then, even though it was just a lot of like black teenagers and everything else, but everybody was united, everybody knew their neighbors, and everybody was British, basically. Me and my mom were like, oh, we are the outsiders, so we have to integrate. We have to integrate into the white and black and everything else. But now, when you go to League, it's completely I don't feel British when I go there. It's weird.
Yes. It's the kind of spirit as well of the city in a way that, regardless of the demographics almost, it's like it never was. It's become this kind of typical, seems to me, kind of urban liberal stronghold, you know, kind of woke stronghold. In a way, London wasn't particularly aligned before, actually. I don't think politically, but now it very much is. I mean, that was shown during Brexit. I mean, but you're always going to be based in London, are you?
No, actually, the with everything that's going on, family, security, and also just basic life, and considering my channel is now geopolitical, I'm still loyal to the kingdom and what this kingdom has done for my family. But
Yeah.
we are planning to potentially move to Florida.
Really?
And life would be safer to do what I do there and to keep them safe. Also, no income tax, that helps.
Well, I mean, the thing is that there is apparently, I mean, in Florida, like in Austin, there is a kind of sense that you are not kind of fighting alone. You know, that there are lots of people around you, you know.
Yeah, but America has this thing which is interesting, where because you were talking about London, um, everybody could join Team America,
Yeah.
even first generation.
Yeah.
You can't be ethnically American, but you join Americanism. London was always, because you were talking about London. London is becoming more of one of those international hubs, like
Yeah.
Dubai, like many other places, like New York, Manhattan. And but some people would say, no, it's always been like that. No, 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 because the whole concept of these local pubs, even pubs, English pubs in London, even in the middle of a tourist area like Covent Garden, that kept that Britishness, the Englishness. And what's changing London, this internationalism, is not necessarily, for example, radical Islam or Islamic culture. It's actually most of it is the Americanism, American culture. So you got all these chains of like Pret and like Starbucks and the Five Guys and everything else, replacing the very unhygienic fish and chips. It's changing. It's changing London.
Well, look, what is so? Okay, that's personally what might be on the horizon for it. What about with Tousi TV? What's the sort of what can we sort of? Well, first of all, just in case people don't know, where do they go to see it? And you've mentioned that you're on YouTube, but then you also have this platform. Where would they go to watch you?
Yeah, so obviously on YouTube it's Tousi TV, Tousi. On the website, similar name, Tousi TV Plus with
Yeah.
PLUS. .tv, but there's also a simplified version, Tousi.tv, and that yeah, the platform is essentially and we're creating an app as well soon, so
Oh, I see.
that will help yeah, keep everybody up to date with everything else. I think there was a gap in the market because obviously we got you guys obviously doing a great job. You've got trigonometry with Constant Kissing doing
Yeah.
other things. Their channel is going really well,
Yeah.
but they have a different format as well. They do a lot of interviews, cultural stuff. That we don't really have much in terms of what I have now ended up doing. So
Yeah.
the way I see my channel is a combination, for those who are familiar, a combination of Daily Wire and Tim Pool. So if you combine
Okay.
those two sort of
Yeah.
formats,
Yeah.
that's kind of what we are doing now on Tousi TV. So on Tousi TV Plus, we're doing similar stuff as Daily Wire in terms of like documentaries and all that. But the actual channel, we do more live streams and breaking news like Tim Pool, basically. Yeah.
Yes. And is there a website attached to you, by the way, a bit like the Daily Wire, you know, like a news website or not, or what?
So I mean, yeah, that's Tousi.tv. So yeah,
Oh,
if you go
okay.
on Tousi.tv, yeah.
Well, look, I hope we don't lose you and your family, but at the same time, I can absolutely understand the impulse behind that. Absolutely can. But in the meantime, doubtless we will see each other in some street in Westminster at some point.
Drink reception, yeah.
Yeah, yes, exactly. But thanks so much for joining us today, and all the very best to you, Maya. Hello. If you're enjoying the New Culture Forum channel and you believe in our mission, may I invite you to join our membership scheme at the link below or on our website, newcultureforum.org.uk. Our work is more important now than ever, and we have great plans ahead for the future, but we can't do it without your support. From as little as £3 per month, you can help ensure that we continue on our mission. As a member, you'll receive a range of benefits, including access to exclusive content, invitations to our private events, including here at our studios, free copies of our books, and much, much more, including, of course, our famous NCF mug. If you aren't able to become a member, then please help us by clicking this button and subscribing to our channel. It's completely free. Just remember to also click the bell icon so that you can get notifications when we post new videos. Thank you.